and welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Bud Elliott. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/Cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 Tailgate, where James knows the deal. Bryce Underwood. Hit that up for everyone out there. Yes, there is a lot to get to because this is your National Signing Day recap. Now, the early signing period starts today, ends Friday. That is important because we do have a big signing on the horizon for Friday. Lots to get into here. We'll go through some of the biggest names, some of the biggest classes, some of the movement that we've recognized from across the board. But I want to begin our conversation, Bud, with the Texas Longhorns, because we haven't seen Texas really recruit like this in a while, have we?
Not really. I mean, not since, you have had really, really good classes. But as we sit here today, Texas sits at number one, Chip, more than 300 points in the 24/7 Sports composite rankings, number one in the country. Now, it's Texas. Like the reason why Sark takes that job, the reason why Tom Herman takes that job, the reason why Charlie Strong or Mac Brown take that job is the ability to just stack elite talent on top of elite talent on top of elite talent. And they've done a really good job of that in Texas. You know, Fornelli, our podcast co-host, has been all over the idea like, look, Texas, they're really good again on the defensive line this year, especially the interior, because they recruited that out of high school. You know, Vernon Broughton, they signed him, they developed him. It's huge. That's why you take this job. Big time school, big time state for talent, ability to go national because you have a national brand. First year in the SEC, you got the best record in the SEC, right? And sorry, my IFB is popping out a little bit. And you go here, like Texas is absolutely crushing it. And I think if you're a Longhorn fan, you're like, hey, this is why we wanted to go to the SEC. We knew we could hang. We knew we have the resources to do it. Now we're capitalizing on some of that SEC name, I think, as well, which is really helping them out, even though last year I think it helped some too in terms of, hey, we're going to the SEC. Now it's like, hey, you know what? We went, we hung, and we're favored to win the thing in our first year. So hook them.
Yeah, so as they're getting ready for the SEC championship in just a few days, the staff is relentlessly working behind the scenes. On Tuesday, they flip four-star cornerback Cade Phillips. And then one of the biggest splashes of the day was Michael Terry III. And so, I'll give you an opportunity to weigh in on a few of these players here, but I've got to think that the five-star Terry was a big part of them being able to jump up there and really get in the mix for number one, because what was it at the beginning of the day? Georgia, right? Was
yep.
Sitting at number one. Texas overtakes them for the time being. Maybe a few other classes still in the mix. What do you make of Michael Terry? What kind of player are the Longhorns getting there?
I mean, just an absolute freak athlete. There's so many spots he could play for you because at that size, 6'3", 215, I think we got enlisted, 217. Change of direction, like competitive character, I think on him is off the charts, just like oozing with potential. These are the kind of guys you want to stack in your class. I think his playmaking ability is really good. I think it's pretty open. Like, do you want to play him on offense or defense? I think the guy had like that size with that level of athleticism. He kind of reminds me of a little bit. And this is kind of a weird comp. Remember Brew McCoy? Yeah. Like just like how big and like, but he also twitched up before all the injury stuff. There's a little bit of that in there, I think, which is pretty interesting. So I think Michael Terry is a great add. Texas has 5 prospects, I think, now in the top 40 according to our rankings. So that doesn't suck. When 1 in 8 of your top 40 prospects are going to Austin to be a Longhorn. Jonah Williams, a stud safety, Kalik Lockett, a receiver with just incredible quicks, but also, he's 6'2". He moves like a guy who's like 5'10" in terms of body control, getting in and out of his breaks. But Lockett is really a nice player who continued to get better throughout his senior season. This is a really nice class for Texas. And as you alluded to, they are number one today. A couple schools still chasing them. But, man, if you're Longhorns, you can't be anything but happy here.
Now, it's not like they just did this out of nowhere, which is why when we look at the long-term success, they have had, since Steve Sarkisian got there, they have had top 5, top 10 classes. Like, that is not uncommon. But it is what you're talking about, where it is stacking those classes that is just like so important to sustain success in the SEC. And that's why like we are going to see Texas playing for the SEC championship in their first year in the conference. 1 year after they make the college football playoff for the first time, they are almost certainly going to be in the college football playoff 2 years in a row, no matter what happens in Atlanta on Saturday. And so when you look at this happening behind the scenes, and when you pair it with the like just how choosy he can be in the transfer portal, right? I mean, you think about some of the guys that he's been able to go out and add and just sort of, piece around, whether it's at wide receiver, whether it's in the secondary where they've had a couple of, really important additions. You go get Trey Moore, the edge rusher from UTSA. Like it becomes the portal is not where you build your team. The team is still being built almost in an old school fashion, but the portal is like where you get all of the upgrades and the cherry on top and all the extra pieces that are flashy. I find myself not with a deep knowledge of all of these individual players, but given what this Texas staff has done since Sark got to Austin and now seeing those like really high level results of like contending for the number 1 class in the country, that's where I'm like, I really don't think that this machine is stopping anytime soon.
It's not, especially not with how they recruit the quarterback position. Obviously, having Arch for the next year or two. To get kind of macro and kind of nerdy for a minute, I still think high school recruit. Like obviously today didn't have a ton of splash, but it did have some. And I think ideally here, you really want to recruit high school extremely well for a couple reasons. Number one, I want to know early on whether this kid has like real potential, whether he gets in my program and he's kind of a dumbass. Like some of that stuff. Sometimes you can tell before they get in your program. Sometimes you can't. Okay. But I want them in because I want to be able to filter out the ones who I don't think will make it. And I want to be able to keep the ones who I do and really invest even more in them once they get inside my program. The difference between high school and transfer is like, if you miss in high school, you have the opportunity to take a second swing, a second bite at that apple, unless you're Clemson, I guess. But if you whiff on your transfer, dude, that's it. You just got to eat it. We talked on the Monday show about how like UCF guys were like, well, I mean, we just missed on quarterback and it cooked us this year. Like that's the thing. If you don't really hit on your transfers and go at extremely high hit rate, your program is going to be subject to just probably an unacceptable level of variance on a year-to-year basis. I think the portal is a great supplement. You can get pieces that'll put you over the top. And we talked about Oregon on the Monday show as well. And obviously you guys talked about it on Tuesday during Big Game Breakdown. I mean, one of the reasons Oregon is in the Big Ten title game is because they went out and they bought 2 D tackles or spent on them and they both hit, right? And that's great. But they're supplementing what they already have. I also think that the level of prospect available in the portal, I still believe it is less than, as far as a ceiling perspective, than what you can get out of high school. Because the very, very, very best kids, for the most part, now some are late bloomers, and that's a different story, but the very best kids, you're going to ID them early, you got to pay for them out of high school, they hit, and then you pay them some more, and you're happy to do so, okay? And those guys never hit the portal for the most part. Some do, and obviously we're seeing that shift a little bit, but that's why I think high school still remains so important. Go down, who's going to make the playoff, right? Almost all of these teams are blue chip ratio teams. Not to just kind of, toot my own horn, but you know what? Ole Miss didn't make it. Florida State didn't make it. Those were kind of the 2 teams that you'd think, hey, maybe they can bust through. Now, Tennessee was real close. Indiana was real close. Well, sorry, Indiana was not real close, but Tennessee was. Maybe those teams can do something for you in the playoff. But Oregon's blue chip ratio, Ohio State, Penn State, obviously Texas, Georgia, yes. Alabama, if they get it in, they will. Clemson, yes. So I still think the teams that are going to win the national title are the teams that are stacking talent out of high school. And if you believe in your development, if you believe in that process, if you guys got something special going on, and with how much these teams spend on sports science and lifting and all that stuff, don't you want to be the one developing these kids for a couple of years so they're in your program? That's why I still think high school recruiting is really important.
I love that. No. That's what interests me.
It's still real to me, damn it, to steal the wrestling clip.
Well, all right. So I was about to just throw on one last piece before we keep this moving, because I do want to talk about the Ducks. When you go into that portal, you know what makes it a hell of a lot easier to recruit the highest level talent kids is if you already have, but if you already have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
That's why you can't bail on going for it with these top prospects and trying to build out your class, because they might pick someone else, But if they are unhappy, or if a coach gets fired, and if they decide that they're going to enter the portal, then all of a sudden you've got a leg up on the competition based on the work that you've already done. You don't have to work to build that relationship from scratch. Cash helps. Yes. But I still think that in this portal era, there is, to your point, something valuable and old school about recruiting these top-notch players out of high school in a way that can help you later on, even if they don't sign with you.
100%. With Oregon, a lot of these guys they brought in the portal, they at least had some kind of relationship with them. Like Oregon had recruited Evan Stewart. They didn't get him, right? It was a different staff, I believe, that recruited Evan out of high school. But at least he had probably visited the Ducks at the time. I don't know if they recruited Derek Harmon or the other kid. Probably not the kid from Houston, obviously. But Chip, I totally agree with you. Oregon, by the way.
Yeah, let's get into the Ducks because
they had a day.
They had a day, including holding off a flip while doing some flipping of their own. Take us through the Ducks National Signing Day, where we always get the Dan Lanning, the cigar. Like, do you think that you think we'll get a cigar video? I mean, he's got a lot going on right now in preparation for Saturday night's Big Ten championship game, but this sure seems like a cigar-worthy day for Oregon.
Smoke him if you got him, and they got him, man. I mean, just absolutely. So I had texted a buddy who's a pretty good, pretty in the know on Auburn. I was like, "Are you guys going to flip? Or are you guys going to flip Naeem Alford, who's a really, really elite level athlete,
5-star cornerback?"
Yeah, and he was like, "Pretty sure Ohio State can't outbid us, but the kid does like the Buckeyes a lot. We'll see about Oregon." And we saw, and he liked Oregon, and Oregon. They put the effort in recruiting. They have a lot of really good recruiters on that staff. They do a nice job of development, and they have the money cannon. Like, that's kind of the combo you want. You know what I mean? You got the biggest gun, and the guy shooting that gun knows what the heck he's doing with it. So for them to get offered, that is a huge deal for them. Obviously, they got DeCorian Moore, who's just a stud receiver. We actually I told this story today on CBS HQ or 24/7 Sports. I kind of forget which show we were doing at the time.
It's
but
multi-platform excellence. We bring the same greatness no matter where you put this, no matter what kind of screen it is. We just bring that heat. So, yeah, sorry.
It wasn't CBS Sports Radio this morning. I know that, but shout out to those guys too. So I was shooting videos for our YouTube channel, Cover 3 YouTube, which if you guys don't watch, you should. And I was trying to get highlight videos with DeCorian Moore because I was like, okay, this video is going to eat for like at least 2 years because this kid's a stud and he's at the time, this was 2 years ago. And I went over there and I was shooting him as one of the last games of the Pylon 7-on-7 tournament. And I'm getting kind of pissed off. I'm like, well, he's not making any plays right now. This kind of sucks. And I was like, and I was talking to Andrew Ivins, who I don't know if he's a first time dad yet, but they're awaiting. That's why he wasn't here today. So Andrew, we love you, buddy. Best wishes to y'all on that. Kai Bates, who ended up being like a top 100 prospect for us, was the kid checking it. It was like, who the heck is that? It's like, oh, so we actually found Kai Bates because we knew DeCorian Moore was that good for that long. And it was like, oh, look at this kid. But Moore is like super competitive kid. He got rocked in a 7-on tournament this year after he was already like a stamped 5-star. And I was like, man, this kind of sucks. Because again, I wanted to get video, but also I want the kid to be healthy. And I was like, there's no way, like 5-star, big time NIL guy, he's not going to keep playing, He did, man. He missed like one game, came back, limped around a little bit. His mom went over and checked him out. And he's like, I want to play. So he went out and just kept playing. He comes down with balls that you would not think he would come down with. The other kid they got is a kid named Dallas Wilson out of Tampa. He is he's an interesting prospect. He's a bigger bodied kid and production has kind of been mixed at times. But some of the flashes that we saw out of him this year were different. Like the ability for him at like 6'2" and some good size to him to destroy angles after the catch. I was like, oh, that is intriguing. I am very interested in what you just showed there, Mr. Wilson. So that was huge. They also, this class is sick. Cal had not named an offensive coordinator yet, so Oregon was able to kind of sneak in and flip their quarterback recruit, Jaron Sapatelli. Yeah. I knew it when we were doing Elite 11. Now I'm botching the kid's name, and I really apologize for that. But he had a nice showing in Elite 11, and so they're able to get him, which I thought it was important that they sign a high school signal caller this year as well, just to kind of keep that thing flowing. But Oregon, if you're another Big Ten team, you're like, this ain't great, man. I mean, it's great for the Big Ten brand, but this ain't great for us if you are, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin, Iowa. Like these Ducks ain't going away. They are loaded, and like they do a really good job scouting. I like their class even down ballot.
I am reminded of when Urban got to the Big Ten, and he would he basically is the pace car.
Gentleman's agreement.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's the pace car, and he's like, I'm not slowing for any of y'all. Y'all have to come catch me. And now Dan Lanning is doing that even to Ohio State by saying, and look, Ohio State still has an amazing class. Like they are still recruiting among the best teams, not just in the Big Ten, but in the entire country. But where they were, making everybody in the Big Ten come and get them, now they have some real competition in the form of the Oregon Ducks. I was in and out of the college football workroom. How there seemed to be some, and look, you're in the Fort Lauderdale office. We got a lot of Gators around this operation. Like, how real was that flip potential based on your read of the situation?
For Dallas Wilson? We got a chip freeze.
Yeah.
I think there was some shot, actually. And Oregon did a tremendous job, holding them off. Obviously, the Gators got some nice flips, may have another one coming, later on. We'll see if they're able to get Solomon Thomas here coming up. But, I think it was real, and that's a huge get for Oregon to hold them off. Florida has real, I know we'll get to them in a minute, but Florida has real momentum. Like that staff has a lot of good recruiters. They put a lot of work in. Billy works those guys hard, and they needed some kind of proof of concept to sell. And obviously, if they're sitting on that huge pile of buyout money that, got to spend it somewhere, right? And they're not buying out Billy. So got to open that up. And I think the ability to play with Lagway, because of how special he has looked down the stretch, is a real draw for kids to come and play for the Gators. So to go into Tampa and to hold off the Gators for Dallas Wilson, that is something of which people should take note, because that ain't easy. We've seen, man, as long as I've been doing this, Oregon is like, oh yeah, we got this kid from Florida and this kid from Florida. I'm like, it's August. Okay. It's August. And for the longest time, hey, what's going to happen come December? Or back in the day, we'd say, what's going to happen come February? What's mom going to say? Okay. Is she really going to get off work on a Friday, or maybe take Friday off and take a 5-hour flight out there to Eugene? But in the NIL world, you could fly private, to some games at least. So it really has changed things. It's made it a smaller world, and Oregon is just stacking talent like crazy.
Any other thought on the Ducks before we hit a break and keep this thing moving?
Shoot, there's a lot of kids in this class I like, Chip. I mean, this is really, it's a second straight top 5 class for them. They got offered, I think Dorian Bruce, a really nice corner out of Texas. There's a little theme here, right? I mean, you got some guys that have some serious length to them. Offered 6'1", Bruce 6 foot. They want to have much in that kind of Kirby, Nick Saban tree. They want to have that length at corner. Everybody kind of talks about it. Some schools kind of need it. I think with the way Oregon wants to play defense, they do kind of need to have those long corners. And they went out and got long corners you can really run. So good combo.
I agree. Coming up on the other side, taking a look at some teams that had a big splash, because sometimes it's the build to greatness that starts here in signing day. We'll get into all that and more next.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
A pair of proud programs with national championships in the trophy case that had a good finish to the season on the field. And despite just 7-5 records, when you think about the way that they finished and then the way that things went in this early signing period, fans are not really sweating that 7-5. They're looking at the future. I'm thinking about Florida and I'm thinking about Michigan. So dealer's choice, Bud. Which way you want to go with this? I know we just mentioned the Gators a little bit, but Michigan does have that superstar prospect that we do need to mention a few more times for the people.
We'll talk both. I already had Michigan pulled up, so let's go Michigan. these two teams probably had the best month at anybody.
Yeah, I was
among
thinking,
non-playoff teams.
I was like, if you
the
are,
vibes are incredible.
Yeah, you like you finish. And by the way, I guess firing Kirk Campbell was part of the deal. I'm not trying to besmirch Kirk Campbell.
Was it? Okay.
Like, do you want to take me through that one? I'm just reading tea leaves here.
So I don't actually have anything to add to this. I mean, it's not like Michigan's quarterbacks this year displayed great play on the field. So I don't really know that it certainly wasn't a negative, I would say, given that it's probably not a move that you make without first running it by your, 7-figure quarterback. Right.
Right.
Right. But I don't have anything else to add. Like, to be honest, I followed all the storylines best I could today, but I'm so locked in on like who I'm going to talk about on HQ, like each of these guys. I went back and like rewatched all the Kansas State and TCU and all that stuff yesterday on the train, just to make sure I could talk about these guys on air, because I don't have every single prospect memorized, unfortunately. But Bryce Underwood's a kid I have seen quite a bit.
Yeah, but Bryce Underwood, we have seen. We do have thoughts on him.
So you knew the athleticism was there. The ability to throw the ball was there. What really impressed me about him, I actually got to see him over the summer here in Orlando. Well, I live in Orlando. And he was playing for Flo, which is like I wouldn't call it the LSU team, but they have the Fleur de Lis. It's a lot of Louisiana kids. And obviously at the time he was committed to, or at least pretty tight with LSU. I'm trying to remember the exact timeline here. He went like 21 of 22 to beat South Florida Express, including like a walk-off, and they were just absolute dots. And remember, at 7-on, you can't run. So for a guy who does have, great size, he's probably 6'3.5", over 200. For him to dice a really good 7-on team like Express that has, multiple 4-star corners going to big schools, that was pretty impressive to me, because the ball's got to be on target. He's not throwing to just wide open guys all the time. I mean, he just dotted them up left and right in a game. It was a great shootout. Like, literally both teams scored every drive. And so he got the ball back with minimal time and just takes him down, touchdown. And then, of course, he hits a no step into it, just standing ridiculous backflip. I'm like, okay, so that's not normal.
Right.
In terms of like the pantheon of quarterback prospects, I mean, he's won one for us as number one player in the country. I think I would put him, hope I don't repeat these words, but I think I'd put him kind of close with like a Justin Fields in terms of ability. He really is different. Some people I know at 24/7 Sports think the running is a little more like a Vince Young. I think it's a little more Camish, but regardless, those are pretty good comps with the legs. And obviously the throwing is coming along very nicely for him. That's such a huge get for Michigan. I mean, if they don't get Bryce Underwood and they settle for Carter Smith, who ended up going to Wisconsin. Obviously, I heard he got a really nice NIL deal from the Badgers, Fort Myers kid. So, know him a little bit. Are we talking about like Sharon Moore hot seat next year? Like if he doesn't pull his class together?
Yeah, maybe.
Do I still got you?
Yeah, you still got me.
I think my IFB just collapsed behind the chair. So if I still got you, I'm just not going to lean forward anymore. So
okay. Can you still hear me? Oh. Did we lose you? Oh, no. Let's see. What do we got here? Oh, now we lost Bud.
How did we lose Bud?
Oh, there we go. You're back.
You got me?
Yes.
So do I just have to hold this behind my head? Like I pulled on the string. I don't know. All right. If you can hear me, I'll do the rest of the show like this. I don't care. I'm probably gonna switch my arm. Gonna.
It's okay. You can rest on the train. There we go, baby. Let's go.
All right.
We got you in this fancy ass studio, but Bud's really more comfortable with his monitors. That's what we've learned today. In two different podcasts today. Yeah. So
we talked to Andrew Babeloa, who's a stud offensive tackle, number 11 player in the country. I interviewed him today on CBS, and I was like, all right, when did you know about Underwood? And he's like, I had a pretty good feeling that we could get him. And he's like, look, it's meaningful for the class, right? Everybody knows who this kid is. The fact that we talked about this with a lot of other prospects too, like when Juju went to Colorado, it was a vote of confidence that Dion was going to stay at Colorado. Other prospects took note of that. I think the same thing applies here with Underwood. Like Underwood, and yeah, there's the money aspect, sure, but the kids won't get paid anywhere because he's that good. If you're 1-1, you're going to get a huge bag pretty much regardless of school. Maybe not an Oracle bag, but like, a bag. And you take a look at this, I do think that is just kind of such a watershed moment for Michigan to hold on to the local kid they absolutely had to have. They have not recruited the quarterback position really well. I didn't love Jaden Davis last year. To me, he was a kid, and we talked about it on the show, and Michigan fans in the chat kind of hated it, but I was like, to me, he was a guy who was really good early, but other prospects passed him up because he didn't keep growing. And North Carolina kid, who you know.
Or like, on that area.
Yeah. And Underwood, I think, has a lot of upside to it. Other kids see that. Like, they see when kids are just different. And those kids carry themselves in a different way, and they just kind of know it. So you still got me?
Yeah.
Good. All right. So that was huge. Keeping Babaloa, 5-star offensive tackles. Those guys are pretty special. Shamari Earls, another really long corner guy who's got some physicality to him, can really disrupt routes. If you're a Michigan fan, I know like the past couple months have not been great. This month was awesome for you.
Yeah.
This is something you're like, oh, we're back, baby.
Yeah. I mean, you beat Ohio State. Yeah. You beat Ohio State. You avoid that awful run of like being national champion to all of a sudden not even being, bowl eligible. You pay, you throw the 50 burger on the board against Northwestern. And then, of course, the win against the Buckeyes, Bryce Underwood, strong close. And so, like, Bud, to your point, are we talking about Sharon Moore hot seat going into next year? Let's reverse that. Let's say they don't make the postseason. Let's say they don't get Bryce Underwood. Then, hell yes, we are. But instead, he's got everything going in the right direction, and he will be in a position to identify the next offensive coordinator that will work perfectly what they want to do with Bryce Underwood's skill set, give them a chance to make a run at another Big Ten title.
Also got some pass catchers coming for Bryce Underwood. Got Andrew Marsh, top 100 receiver out of Texas, who we like a lot.
There's another in-state guy that was like a package deal with him, right?
Oh no, they flipped what's his name from Pitt, who was Bryce's teammate, Dotson. That kid's pretty nasty too. And obviously Narduzzi has a pretty good track record of evaluating safeties, by the way. Like, we already had him pretty high up, so that's encouraging. Like, we already had him in the top 120. So that's pretty encouraging there. The one name to watch here for Michigan is going to be Andrew Olesh, because DeCorian Moore tweeted at Olesh today, obviously, hey, come to Oregon. Now he's committed to Michigan, hasn't signed yet. I gave Babaloa a chance to kind of give him his recruiting pitch today on CBS. So, and try to create a little duel there. But yeah, man, if you're Michigan, you got to be really thrilled. Like, this is an excellent class for the Wolverines to be top 10 with a first-time head coach after barely making a bowl game. Well, not barely, I guess they beat Ohio State, but barely, like, just getting into a bowl game, getting the big rivalry win. That's huge. It's just, sometimes recruits have that impact. If Meyer doesn't land Tim Tebow, if Tim Tebow goes to Alabama with Mike Shula, like, maybe he gets Cam Newton the next year, maybe he doesn't. Maybe that tenure goes drastically different. The next kid he signed was John Brantley. Yep. And John Brantley sucked. Like sometimes you gotta land the kid in the backyard who you know is a stud, who you know is a fit for your system.
Sometimes it's the prospects that does the recruiting. You hinted earlier that the idea of playing with DJ Lagway is something that's like proven commodity. We've seen him out there. We know what he can do at the college level, even against SEC competition. What else do you make? What are some of the big standouts from Florida's class?
So I know that Cooper has a different comp for Vernell Brown, but I've seen Vernell Brown a lot. Goes to Jones High School, which is pretty close to my house there in Orlando. I kind of see some like Antonio Brown in his game.
Ooh.
Yeah. Like, I know it's Vernell Brown a third. So Gator legacy, but he just the quickness in and out of the routes. He plays with great toughness. He's a kid who really does play hard. I mean, we have him number 39 in the country for a guy who's 5'11". Like, there's not a ton of those guys that are going to be rated that high, because you'd like to see the guy have some size, but he's a burner. He really is a great tactician. I think he has a great feel for how to run routes. He catches the football well, massively productive. Vernell Brown's a guy that I think Florida fans and SEC fans are going to know very quickly. I would expect him to play like day one for the Gators. They're going to get the ball in his hands. Wow. And he can get himself open. Like, he's not one of these young guys who's athletic, who you have to scheme open. I think he can get himself open because he is that good of a route runner.
Wow. And obviously just huge because to my eye, Billy Napier, changed the narrative, but you're always just you're just a couple bad losses away from being right back with the target on you. Like this is like Billy Napier will have next year with DJ Lagway, some pieces of this group, some pieces back from last year's group, but this is something else I think that he can point to when it comes to those arguments. But I mean, this isn't a class that buys him 3 more years, is it? I mean, winning's got to come right now.
I think his tenure is pretty tied to Lagway.
Okay.
I mean, to be honest, let's if I'm Florida's brass, like, hey, if you don't win with this guy, then we're going to get somebody else. I think that's fair. Like Lagway, with how well he played against a murderer's row schedule down the stretch. I mean, I know LSU was reeling a little bit, and Florida State sucked this year, but still, like, he beat Ole Miss, and Ole Miss was pretty damn talented. Like, he played exceptionally well down the stretch for them, and just the pocket movement and how big he is, how hard he is to bring down, is crazy. And then he's making all these like sidearm and submarine throws and just showing off some of the baseball skills. This class is pretty deep, though. Honestly, like the safety combo they signed with Stubbs, and then today they got Hayward. That's really big for them. They needed a lot of help there in the secondary. Ben Hanks is another legacy from Booker T down there in Miami. I mean, guy, top 50 player for us at corner. So Florida has needed to get some secondary help. They went out and they got it. They're still, I believe, I don't think he's signed yet. I'm trying to like not stare at my computer screen the entire time. They're still very much in it for Solomon Thomas, who's I guess a Knowles verbal commitment right now. I don't think they're going to get, or sorry, he's not going to sign with Florida State. Did he sign to LSU already?
Yeah, I think Thomas just
okay.
as we were talking, I think Thomas to LSU news just popped.
Okay. I know they were, the word I got this morning was FSU's definitely out and it'll be either LSU or UF. So I guess that one stings a little bit, but I mean, this is a really nice class. Florida will have to attack offensive line in the transfer portal pretty heavily. Also, I like the Daniel Pierre-Louis kid they got. I mean, we have him as a 3-star, number 84 guard in the country, but I think the kid's got something to him. I know UCF was kind of pissed to not be able to get him. He flipped Florida State and he flipped to the Gators. I like this kid, man. Like, he may not be like a total superstar, but I think he's a really nice piece. He plays hard. He can bend. I just think they've done a nice job scouting this class out.
So just staying in the SEC real quick. Hey guys, it's shocker of all shocker. Georgia's got a good recruiting class. I know that is just, mind blowing that someone would think that Kirby Smart's program's done a good job when it comes to talent acquisition. But I instead wanted to turn the focus on Justice Terry, the 5-star defensive lineman. Is that Texas and Georgia basically? And he'll sign on Friday?
That's our read on it as of now. Yeah. And that will be the player who decides the number 1 overall class.
Wow. No matter what happens in the spring, like this is too much will be off the board at that point that no one's going to be able to turn that tide.
I can't say no one because maybe some other players who haven't signed, you never know like whose agent's going to shop them around again. Yeah. Right. But as of now, if Georgia holds on to Terry, we were talking in the workroom before this, Georgia will jump Texas. If Texas gets Terry, then Texas will basically cement itself as the number 1 class. So if you guys don't know, Justice Terry is like really, really nice defensive lineman, jacked, like super quick, excellent player. Like that's a guy you want in your class.
Yeah. God don't make many of them, as we like to say a lot.
And they also have Elijah Griffin, who's a total freak, 6'5", 280. So in a year in which I did not love the D-line class, I will say Georgia did a tremendous job of cleaning up at the very top of it. And that actually matters because it's kind of a positional like market scarcity type of argument here, right? You think about it, like if it's not a great year for D linemen and Georgia gets a bunch of them, they also got Linton, who's Chase Linton, who's a stud. So yeah, not bad. Georgia with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys in the top 45. So between them and Texas, what is that? 11 dudes in the top 45 combined.
Oh, all right. So the 2 teams that are playing for the SEC championship on Saturday, on Wednesday, accounted for almost a fourth.
11 of the top 45. Oh, yeah. Plus Terry. So give it an even dozen.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned something. You and I were talking on the phone earlier. Good day, South Carolina, bad day, Clemson. Is that sort of how that lines up?
Yeah, and I don't know there was like a terrible day for Clemson, and I don't want to go negative because I just feel like it's signing day. Let's talk the teams that are going to be positive. But Clemson is a unique team here because with every other team, we don't shut the book on their talent acquisition cycle until after the portal. But with Clemson, because Dabo, at least so far, unless I missed something, does not take transfers and doesn't intend to change their approach. I shouldn't say don't take transfers. Clemson fans will nitpick and be like, oh, they took a transfer. I'm like, yeah, a guy who's like a walk-on level quarterback who's going to be a coach. Cool.
Well, no, the thing that I'm going to give Dabo here is he is right. A lot of times he does not have scholarships. But we look at the end of that roster and we look at who plays against Wofford and we think, you know what? You probably could make some scholarships available if you wanted to handle your business differently. He chooses to do so otherwise. Right.
So Clemson has a class that will allow it to keep contending in a kind of middling ACC.
Yeah,
I do not think Clemson.
I don't think it was a good signing day for the ACC.
I mostly agree. Miami still has a pretty nice class, but yeah, I agree with that. SMU, I think, had a pretty good class relative to where they normally are. But, the ACC, they don't have a lot of teams that have like real NIL juice. They don't. Like a lot of them are like smaller fan bases, private schools type thing. And some private schools, SMU, Miami, have some boosters who really get into it, and some just obviously don't. But with Clemson's class, like they have some good pieces. They got one of the best defensive linemen in the country in Amari, who I think is just a total stud. But you kind of look at it as like, this is it? And we could say this is it because they don't take transfers. Meanwhile, South Carolina, who does do a nice job of taking transfers, they had a pretty nice day. They got the best JUCO prospect out there in Xavier Hardy. They flipped him from Mississippi State. They got Ingram today. Obviously, like they're able to sell Lenora Sellers on the recruiting trail pretty hard, much like Florida is with Lagway. And I think I would rather have South Carolina's talent haul with the expectation of who they're going to bring into the transfer portal than I would Clemson's. And if you're Shane Beamer, if you could have told me that last year, I'd be like, sure, right? But now it's like that's a real selling point. South Carolina is like not going away. It for two programs that had, South Carolina had a really good year by their standards. Florida had a better than expected year. Those two are two teams with young quarterbacks who I think are ready to maybe take a leap if they can get the right pieces in the portal.
The tailgate is pointing out Georgia Tech did have its highest ranked class ever. I guess we're still waiting on Josh Petty to sign, the 5-star offensive tackle. Or do you think?
I would have a little concern there.
Okay. I mean, with both Ohio State and Tennessee, or like either one, or do you have your eyes on one or a mystery candidate?
Well, obviously, Ohio State and Tennessee were heavily involved with David Sanders, who's not signing as of now. He's the number one offensive tackle, according to most people in this class. So those two would be involved. Florida State was heavily involved down the stretch, and obviously they didn't get Solomon Thomas. So, well, not down the stretch, but at the end of summer, I mean, he literally didn't waver basically since he committed to Tech. Josh Petty, number 21 overall player in the class, skinny, but has the frame to add a lot of weight. Very athletic offensive tackle. If you're Petty, you got to love what you saw out of Brent Key, right? Mm-hmm. Offensive line guy. They pushed Georgia around pretty well in that game. Obviously, use some motion and things to create good angles for the offensive line, but whatever. Like that O-line plays hard. They play cohesive. They have the academic program I think you want. But I mean, if I'm Tech, yeah, man, I'm nervous as hell sweating that out. Got to be right. Like that's the best player you signed. That's the highest rated player that they would have signed since Calvin Johnson.
Wow.
It's got to be like, I'm trying to think who that's probably not true. They've probably signed somebody, but maybe not. Like he's 21st in the country. Is there somebody higher that I'm missing here? Let's see if I can pull this up. Highest rated. I got all-time commits.
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Jahmyr Gibbs would have been really high up there. Jahmyr Gibbs actually was the 7th highest rated player.
7th. Okay.
Derek Morgan 6th.
Oh yeah, let's go. Remember some dudes.
Brandon Sumner in 2000. I was a high school freshman then, so I actually do not recall him. Petty's 4th. Tay Harris, who
they just flipped from Clemson like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. But I mean, and then Hobie Holiday, who was in the class of 2000 as well. Calvin Johnson is number one at 2004. Now, here's the thing. On our website, we actually have, I think, the composite ratings of these kids. So we have Petty rated higher than Harris. So Harris, according to 24/7 Sports, would be we don't have a rating because 24/7 didn't exist in 2000.
Right.
2000 kids, but he would be like, since 24/7 became a thing, he would be the second highest rated player they've ever signed, second only to Calvin Johnson. Did I clean that up okay?
What?
I think I cleaned that up all right. It kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
That was kind of convoluted. All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks?
You talk some quarterbacks?
Yeah. How did you see the pieces move around?
So it's interesting. I think this is a pretty nice quarterback year. There's some guys who really had big time senior seasons. If you want to take a look at this, we talked Bryce already. I think Bama holding on to Keelan Russell is awesome. Like, that's a kid I like kids who care, man. And I'm not saying like you can always judge who doesn't care, because some guys are a little more nonchalant, but you can tell the ones, I think, who really do care, who like to compete, who show up at events, who play, man. Like, I like guys who play, not guys who sit out. I do think that is a little bit predictive for a lot of kids. It's not 100%. Sure, some guys are very carefully managed by their manager, and they just don't show up to stuff, and then they crush. But Keelan going to Alabama is huge. I think Bama fans have got to be absolutely thrilled. I mean, just killed it for Duncanville, obviously. Tavian St. Clair, guy with a lot of nice tools for Ohio State. A little bit raw, but I mean, physically, he's pretty special. USC got Longstreet, who was an A&M commitment for a while. That's probably, like, I know Chris Trevino of USCFootball.com comped him to Baker Mayfield today. We had him on the show. So shout out Ryan Abraham of USC Football. Ryan, I did get your email if you're watching this. Been a busy day, so I will I'll get the 24/7 Sports podcast management business there. But Longstreet, really nice. A lot of people in the industry are like very envious that Maryland held on to Malik Washington.
Okay.
That's something I think that Maryland did not have a good year, but Malik Washington can play. And there are a lot of teams that were very interested in him down the stretch. Auburn keeps Deuce Knight home. Well, not home, but from the state of Mississippi. I think Deuce Knight is really the upside on him. Former Irish commit. He is raw, but the upside on him is really, it's excellent. We talked about him a lot over the course of the season. Missouri kept Zollers, obviously, kid that I think Penn State had some interest in at one point. We talked about Oregon with Jerron. Jerron just came out and did nice at Elite 11 and just kept improving and improving and improving. And it's like, shoot, this guy is on a real pretty steep development curve. This is impressive. Who else? Colorado getting Julian Lewis. We already talked about that. Was big. I think Kamario Taylor for Mississippi State. Mississippi State had a rough day, man. They lost their best linebacker to Ole Miss. Ole Miss flipped that kid. I like Kamario Taylor a bunch. We talked to the Elite 11 coaches out there, and he had kind of a rough first 2 days out there, but they're like, he cares. He wants to get better. He's asking the right questions. And by day 3, when it came to the 7-on, they didn't have to coach him that much. He just went out there and carved. And was like, okay, it's not bad. And he can really run too. Like, the kid is a good athlete. So I'm excited to see. I don't know if Mississippi State will ever win big. That's a hard as hell job, man. I think Mike Leach and Dan Mullen are, two of the better coaches we've seen in a while as far as like coaching and winning in underdog roles. Maybe not recruiting so much, obviously, with those two. But Kamario Taylor may be an absolute pain in the ass for everybody to play in the SEC going forward in this Mississippi State offense, because they will score.
With Jeff Lebby, that's the other thing. It's
right.
Give Jeff Lebby a good trigger man, and like things could get really, really difficult for opposing defenses to deal with that. That's the Mississippi State plan when you hire Jeff Lebby, is that we are going to score points, but you need a good quarterback to be able to do that. So great sign for him and that staff that they were able to land him.
And Arkansas flipped Madden Iamalieva, which, if you know that name, from UCLA. So that was kind of a nice little sign and day flip for them. It's not like the deepest quarterback class, but I do like the guys at the top, especially Underwood and St. Clair. And there's some real intrigue with some of these guys. And more than half of them will bust and transfer within a year. So I'm sure we'll talk about a lot of these names again in the future.
All right. So You said that you spent a lot of time going through the back half of the Big 12. Any other thoughts from that research that linger that you think sort of resonate on a national level?
Okay, so the two that we had to cut short because we had so many good interviews. We had Signetti on, we had Cristobal on, we had a bunch of like big time coaches on the show today, which was awesome. But I did not get to Arizona State and Arizona, so I guess I'll give both those schools some flowers. Have you seen this kid Muti from Arizona State? It's like 6'7", 320 and moving people.
Let's go. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I like him. These are real deep cuts. They also got an absolute track star in Butler, like a little 5'8" kid, but I think Kenny Dillingham will find a way to use him pretty well. And then I thought Arizona, terrible season on the field. We saw was it official report that Fafita was going to hit the portal or maybe some suggestion of it? I don't want to spread rumors. I saw it on Twitter and just haven't followed up on it yet. But I think they did a nice job. This the Akpa kid, offensive lineman from California, I think can really play. Like that's a guy that I think they're probably going to hit on, at least from my read on it. And they added some real speed. The Griffin kid, DB from Cali, is nice. And the Mizell kid I've seen quite a bit here in Florida, and he's another track guy. So they added a lot of speed. Both Arizona schools, I like their classes.
Kansas State holds on to the big 5-star tight end, right?
Like a Cure. Yeah,
Cure.
That's huge for them. They also, stop me, you heard this before, got a skinny kind of developmental offensive lineman who's got a nasty streak to him. That just feels very Kansas State, but the Heath kid's nice. They also got this corner named Scott, who I liked his tape quite a bit. Like a long two-way athlete. Reminds me a little bit of like a Tommy Hill, who came from Orlando, signed with Arizona State back in like the Herm Edwards days, transferred to Nebraska. He was kind of a star of week 3 for us this year.
You talked about him going into the Colorado game.
Yeah, he checked Travis Hunter pretty well and then took the pick 6 back. So that was a nice day for him. I think Kansas State's doing some things, man. And if they can hold on to what they have, Lincoln Kier's a guy that's going to play early. I'm pretty sure. Like that level of athlete, pass catcher, I think he's going to be good for them.
Yep. You did great work today. Awesome. You
appreciate it,
multi-platform excellence. You're doing locks in the morning. First you're doing CBS Sports Radio recruiting, then you're doing locks for conference championship, then you're doing CBS Sports Network, CBS Sports HQ, 24/7 Sports, like all, and now back on the Cover 3 podcast, 2 in 1 day. Fantastic work.
I was like, I need like some kind of juice for this. Do I go with the coffee? I went with the 8-ounce coffee. It's just something small so I can sleep tonight.
The little machine where you can just go boop, boop, boop. Yeah. That was smart. They take care of you down there. Good people in Fort
Lauderdale.
We need
waters down here. We need more waters.
I get I'll get one bottle and then just keep refilling it at the fridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah. Very relevant to the huge.
The problem is I was in that seat today over there and my water's right there.
Oh, so yeah. Well, go get yourself some water and get yourself on that train back home. All right. We will be back with you on CBS Sports Network Friday from 12 to 2 p.m. Eastern time. Watch us. Then you can also check it out on demand on the YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. And as we announced earlier today, January 9th in Fort Worth, the day before the Cotton Bowl playoff semifinal, we are going to be doing the Cover 3 Tailgate Live. There is a QR code on the screen. It is free to come to the event, but you must RSVP. That QR code will be able to take you there. You can also find the link to the event in the episode description on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. We will continue to remind you it's going to be a great time. Our first Cover 3 live show all together at Tannehill's Music Hall, Tavern and Music Hall. We're fired up about it, and we hope you come and join us. And you can follow him on Twitter at Bud Elliott 3. You can follow me at Chip _Patterson. Bud, thank you very much.
Enjoyed it, buddy. See y'all.